Welcome to the Royal Easter Show. We're at the rice area, and I've got Andrew Baum and Jody Dean, who works for the Royal Easter Show. So, Andrew, tell us what your job is.
So I work for the Rice Growers Association. We represent rice growers in the Riverina and in some other parts of Australia, but mostly the Riverina, and there are about 1,500 rice growers who we look after.
And Jody, what's your job?
So my job here at the Sydney Royal Easter Show is to bring education and information about where our food comes from to kids and school groups and families coming through the show.
Why do we grow rice, Andrew?
Well, we grow rice because a lot of people need to eat,
Yep.
and a lot of people like to eat rice, and we feed about 20 million people a day from Australian rice.
And where is the rice in Australia mostly grown?
Mostly grown in the southwest of New South Wales, in the Riverina.
Yep.
So around towns like Griffith and Deniliquin, Hay, Finley, places in that area.
Why there?
It's really good conditions for growing the sort of rice that we specialise in. We grow a medium grain rice, which is suited to hot and sunny climates, and it's hot and sunny down there, and we've got lots of flat country, very good for irrigation.
So rice is actually a crop we get a lot of crop off for the hectares?
Yeah, that's right. We're the highest yielding rice crops in the world, in the Riverina. We get about 10 tonnes per hectare, which if you think about a wheat crop, dry land, which is just rain fed, it's about 1.5 or 2, and we get 10, so it's pretty big yields.
So you get 5 times the return?
Yeah, well, we've got a few more costs to get it out of the ground as well, but it is a very high yielding crop, and it's really good for growing in Australia.
Well, show us this. We've got some crop here.
This is what it looks like when you harvest it. So you've got the rice grains in there, and you can see there's a bit of a protective husk around there, and under that protective husk is the brown rice grain. Some varieties are long grain, which is typically the sort of rice grain in Asian countries.
Yes.
We more often grow a medium grain, which is a bit shorter and wider, and we also grow a shorter grain rice, which is the Japanese like to eat in sushi.
Yes.
We grow that sort of stuff as well, and that's a short, fat, squat little grain.
Right. Now, one thing I noticed, Jody, is it's growing in water.
Yes.
The rice is growing in water.
That's right.
Now, is that how much of the time does a rice crop spend with its feet wet?
So it depends on how you sow it. So if you can sow it into water, they drop it out of an aeroplane, pre-germinate the seed, so they soak it in water so it's just a little bit germinated, and they have the water on and they can drop it out of an aeroplane, or you can drill sow it like you would a wheat crop or a barley crop or oats.
And how's it mostly done here?
A bit of both. It really depends on whether the ducks are around. The ducks like the water, so if the ducks are around we try and drill sow it. But a lot of aerial sowing. For the really big areas, it's hard to get enough crop in time with the tractor, so they drop it in by the plane.
Now, while there's water lying in the paddock, it looks like a wetland, doesn't it?
It can do a little bit, before the rice crop really starts going.
Yes, and Jody, there's some stories about the ecosystem. There's some animals that like to live in water, other than ducks.
Other than ducks, so obviously the ducks are there and they can be a bit pesky for the farmers. But like any wetland, any ecosystem, rice actually creates a really fantastic habitat for native species. So I know our rice farmers in Australia are really responsible for providing a habitat to a range of endangered native birds, and they even have a range of frogs and different animals and insects that live in that ecosystem. So they're actually a really important part of that in Australia.
After we've grown the rice, we've got to get ready to harvest it.
That's right.
And does that happen on a wet field or a dry field?
No, it's got to be dry. They let the water out, they let it come down, and the plant uses up the rest of the water, and they get a harvester on there when it's nice and dry. They basically harvest it like you would a wheat crop or any other cereal.
So there's a percentage of moisture that can be in the rice?
Yeah, that's right. Rice has got to be a little bit more moist than you would other grains, because they have to dry it down so that it doesn't crack during the milling process. So they have to dry it down at a regulated pace.
Okay, so they're looking for a particular percentage of water.
Yeah, that's right. It's about 20%.
Oh, that's actually quite high.
It's quite damp.
Yes. So once we've harvested it, it looks like this. Like to get some out and show us.
Yep, they'll dry it down in the sheds until they've got it at the right level of dryness, so they can mill it. And it looks a bit like that. It's It's got a protective husk on the outside. Just grab one of those. You can see it's got a little shell on the outside just to protect the grain, and that's the one that we take off in the first stage of the milling process.
And you can't eat it like this?
Oh, you could, but it'd be pretty uncomfortable. You might get a few nasty bits in your throat.
It's quite a lot of roughage there.
That's right, yep.
So you mill it. We'll have a look at
That's
that in a
right.
few minutes.
Yep, so the first stage we need to get that little husk off.
Yep.
So what you're left with, that's the husk there. And that we give that to horses and other animals for feed.
Yes.
And also for animal bedding.
So for animal bedding?
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty comfy
like
for the
guinea
animals.
pigs and things like that?
Yeah, it could be.
Yep.
Whatever. Yeah,
Yep.
chooks.
Yep.
Yep.
But then we're left with?
So that's brown rice after you take the
right.
husk off. So when you see brown rice in the supermarket, that's what it is, just paddy rice with the husk off. So you put that in the rice cooker or in the saucepan with boiling water, and that's your brown rice.
I particularly like this because it's really nutty.
It's got a nutty flavour,
Yeah.
and as we'll see in a minute, it's got a lot of good stuff in there for you as well, good healthy food.
Right, so from there what happens?
Okay, so if you want to get brown rice into white rice, you basically give the brown a really, really good rub together,
Yep.
and off comes an outer layer of bran on the outside of that brown rice. And here it is, that's the bran that comes off the brown when you rub it together. And that is full of nutrients and fibre, really good for you.
A lot of people, what do you use this for?
You can use that for making snack foods, breakfast cereals, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So when that stuff's milled, when the brown rice is milled, they take that stuff off and they sell it to the food companies and they use it for breakfast cereals.
Well, let's walk down here and have a look at what happens when we take all that bran off.
Righto, so here you go. You've taken all the bran off.
Yep.
And you've basically just polished and buffed the brown rice.
Yep.
The bran's come off and there you go, white rice. And that's typically what you'd see in the supermarket, and that's what a lot of people like to buy. And
Right, so rice is a carbohydrate.
yeah.
Yep. So it's good for, for bulking up and running and making noodles.
Gives you energy.
Gives you energy.
That's right. Yep.
Right, now sometimes though, when you mill it, they get damaged.
Yeah, they can.
What happens?
They can. So there's some of them break.
Yep.
So as we said before, with the moisture content, we try and dry it down so that we don't get too much breakage, but some of them do break. And in the mill, they've got a little colour sorter, and it scans every single grain of rice that passes through the mill, and it identifies the ones that are broken, and it shoots a bit of air at them and spits them out, and they go in a separate pile.
So there's a rice sorter.
There's a rice sorter.
So every single grain of rice that gets packaged in Australia,
billions and trillions of grains,
seen and sorted.
That's right, every one. A lot of our markets don't like any broken bits in their rice, so you've got to give them the full grain. So we've got to try and sort out getting rid of those little broken ones.
What a job, a rice sorter.
Thankfully, it doesn't have to be done by a person.
Yep.
There's a machine, very clever machine that does it.
But people have got to run the machines.
That's right. It's a very high-tech bit of gear.
Right. So there's great jobs in running in technology with rice.
Absolutely. It's not just growing it, but there's engineering. There's running all the equipment that works at the mill. There's running the sheds that house the paddy rice.
Yep. Or the irrigation.
Yeah, that's right. All the irrigation, all the chemistry that goes involved in breeding new rices and working out what has the best eating qualities.
Yep.
The job of rice breeding itself in finding the best varieties, the ones that produce the best grain that people like to eat and grow the best in the field. Plenty of different jobs involved in the rice industry.
So from there, rice flour is what?
Okay, so we take all those broken bits. It gets crushed up and turned into rice flour. So if I do that with my hand, you can see a little bit of, you can have a bit of that.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's really quite soft.
Yeah, that's right, it is. And they just crush that up and there you go, you've got the rice flour, and that gets used in a lot of things like rice crackers, a lot of foods that people who can't have gluten.
Yep.
A lot of gluten-free foods use rice flour because there's no gluten in rice. Every bit of the process, all the byproducts, all the things that are left over, we use them for something different, so there's nothing goes to waste.
Well, great to hear about rice. Great to hear how important it is to the Australian economy and to the world's food. And Andrew, thank you for coming.
And thank you for letting us talk about it.
And Jody, thanks for introducing us to Andrew and to rice.
My pleasure. Hope everyone learned something.
Right. Great from us. Thank you.